Oh, hello everyone. I'm Gaz Ferreira here from Meteor Software talking to you again one more time. How are you doing, folks? Today we are going to have a different conversation with two guys, with two developers from the open source world. One of them is part of our core team inside Meteor Software, and the other one, we can say he's part of the core team as well because he is. He's not currently working inside a company, but he has been here for a longer time than most of us, I guess. He's Jan Vorak. How are you doing, storyteller?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, you're more than part of the Meteor Core team, right? You are like,
Well, I was at one point part of the company itself. Right now, I am what would be considered a Meteor core, but I am contributing from community part. So I am a community contributor in that
yeah,
respect.
a great contributor, I could say. And we are also with Danielson, as I said, that is here with us again today. How are you, Danielson?
Hello everyone, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, guys. So the idea here today is just have a chat about your career, your story with open source, and maybe give some tips for people who want to get involved with Meteor, but also with other open source projects in the wild. And I'd like to first of all ask you guys like, how did you started with open source? If you maybe remember what was your first contribution, that would be really nice to say, and maybe we give a little bit of your background as well, starting with Jan.
Oh man, that's a very, very long time ago in a country very far away. Just kidding. I think for me, I origin started as a, I could say you can go all the way back to where I started developing for websites in general, which was, it must have been like 8 or 9, where they were very like early on, or maybe like early teens when I discovered, and learned how to do HTML, how to build my website. So I had my crappy original HTML website. And eventually, especially as I got older, I started doing, with PHP. And that went to, I think around the time of, me going to university. So around 2010, I started really building more complex PHP website. I started with a framework that is still around today called CodeIgniter. And that's kind of where I started my first contributions. First to something called A3M, which added, kind of accounts and authentication system to the framework, or was kind of like a starter, you could say. Eventually, I added like my own forums and other stuff, things, and then I started contributing. I'm not sure if how much I contributed to the CodeIgniter as or not, but at least I was active in the comments. And then eventually I switched to Meteor in 2015, or I was going to say early 2016, and started contributing there first, with my own small packages, then, other, say, community packages, and eventually in Meteor Core itself, from the smaller things to the big ones. And of course, once you kind of get into that world, or even like before, as I was at CodeIgnite, working around CodeIgnite, where I started contributing to other projects along the way. It was also helped very much because the university itself had a very strong, you could say, open source program. They actually now, just after I left, they created a open source minor as well, which I would love to have done back then. So there was a strong open source community there. Mostly on Python, so I was kind of like the odd one out with PHP and later on JavaScript. Uh, so that kind of got me in. And once you're like in GitHub on the culture, once you start interacting with all of that, uh, it, you know, I think, once you get into it, and for me, with my background in other things as well, it was a very nice fit of values and everything. So I just kept on going and expanding in there.
And
Muted?
what about you? Wait, yeah, yeah.
No,
And what
fine.
about you, Danielson?
Oh yeah, my story isn't as complete as Ian's. Like it's nice. I didn't know about all this from Ian. My first contact with open source was actually here on Meteor when I started working here about 5.5 years ago. So that was my first experience. At the time, I didn't know exactly what open source was and how was the community and everything around. I was still in college back then, and here I discovered this part of the community and how the open source works and everything. So that was my first contact. I was trying to remember what was my first contribution to Meteor, but I can't. It was probably docs, probably something simple. It was nothing complex, but yeah.
And how did you get into Meteor? I don't know if I don't remember if I asked you that before.
Oh, it was with the help of Philippe Nevola, and after Tiny bought Meteor, Philippe started work here as a advocate, and at the time he was as an advocate. After that, he became the CTO or something like that, and he needed someone to help here, and I was working with him on Quavi on a product that it is still around, the product called Bmark. And I was already working with him. So he offered me a junior position here, and I, of course, accepted. And yeah, that's how I started working here on Meteor.
Hmm. When so you had no idea about how open source worked at this time, or that there was open source.
No, on Quavi we worked with Meteor, so I was already familiar with Meteor. But just as a developer, I didn't at the time. I didn't have done anything inside Meteor, any contribution. So, but I didn't, I didn't know about the open source world and everything around.
Okay, so I don't know if this is a very complex question, but yeah, like when you started, it's been a while, and we know that in the tech industry, things move fast, protocols change, languages come and go, and how do you feel that the open source project landscape has changed from when you started to nowadays?
That lot of changes. When I started, at least with Meteor, uh, it was a very difficult time, you could say, in JavaScript in general, because there were just so many new frameworks coming in. Everything was constantly changing. It is still changing, so it is quite a challenge to keep track of everything. And that's also another reason why I like Meteor, because it provides answers. Okay, this is how you do things, this is what we use for that. And it's not constantly trying to fish, okay, what do I change, what do I need to rewrite my entire project in again, to keep with the cool guys. And this is also one reason why I stick with Meteor, and will probably stick with it into the future, because I don't constantly have to rebuild. And even a lot of the frameworks today change a lot. They have constant breaking changes, constantly upgrading, which creates a lot of stress for you. So for me personally, I'm also very conservative person in many aspects, kind of like the class. I would say, as every human, we have a lot of contradictions. So I'm like very conservative in one aspect, but with technology, I like to be constantly at the latest version, at the forefront of uh, technology within reason. So it has changed a lot in, I would say, complexity has gone up, because when I started, it was just like, hey, here is my HTML file that I put on a server, and it displays everywhere. Everybody's happy, and pretty much that's it. Then you add PHP, then you add databases, and it starts building up. And especially now, when you start thinking about scaling your websites to build more and more, so there's much more things that you have to think of constantly. Uh, and not to even mention all the security things that have evolved with that as well. So definitely the complexity has came in, and I recently I've been working with a lot of junior developers, and I can it kind of makes me realize how many things now as a senior developer I can or I have in my mind I take into account as compared to this to the junior developers. So when I get code from them, it's like, oh, don't forget internationalization, don't forget accessibility. You don't have this properly sanitized, and I can list like 20 other things that I just have on top of my head that I'm developing in the code. And I kind of realize that also makes me slower because I'm thinking constantly of all those things, of all those inter uh, connections and everything. So it has definitely evolved. I would say part of it is because I have been in it longer, but part of it is also has how the ecosystem has evolved. As now we can also see it, for example, with the Linux Foundation and other organizations out there. We have recently the big talk is about supply chains attack and supply chain security. So making sure dependencies are all there, which is kind of the reverse of how we went. For we have dependencies to or package to build on every stupid small things like left path, to now okay we are trying to limit our dependencies and actually trying to look after them, so that we are kind of in loop on what's going on there, and we can kind of check it out and be aware of it. So there is that entire aspect. And also recently, because I like a lot of technical stuff, I, for example, watch documentaries about the airline industry and how they have developed. So I kind of feel we are going through similar aspects for like where you could say the hardware engineering, just things about elevators and how they have developed, from there actually have to be somebody manually operate them, and then all the safety features that were developed through all of these things. Also the same thing with planes, and in there's usually mistakes get fixed because somebody dies. So I think software itself is going through that transition, and in a way, you could say we are migrating, from the dirt, cheap software that you can build super fast to something that, if you want actual quality, takes time and is expensive. Uh, but yeah, so that's kind of where it comes to, and I would say that's also kind of the transition. You go from junior developer to senior developer, building quickly, cheap, and oftentimes with a lot of breaking things, into being a senior developer who is more expensive, takes a longer time, and but at the end build something that hopefully is more stable and it's not going to crash on you.
Okay, so common folk just arrived here and it's saying that the string quality is a bit weird. Is it me? Is it Jan? Is it
Yeah,
everyone? I don't know.
I know my
Yeah.
camera is already too bad. Let me try to disable
I think
this.
it's looking at it on YouTube, it looks like it's on YouTube's end at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
so have the high quality there, or auto quality. So not
Yeah.
sure what's going on there.
But you can listen to us. If you can listen to us, that's okay, I guess. So one thing that I realized that I didn't ask you, that I ask in every string, is that where people are watching us from. Fumble4 said he's watching from Norway. How are you doing, man? And one thing that was I was thinking actually before we start this live stream is that I don't remember when, but at some point was introduced the idea of sponsoring people that want to work in open source projects, which is something that we didn't have in the past, at least. And I don't know, is it? This is something that I never looked into very much, but is it possible to uh, live as an open source developer only through sponsorships? Yes, I guess so, right? Do you guys know anyone that lives like that?
There are a few developers, oftentimes as is usually needed, of very popular projects that do that. But I would say not nearly enough people that should, because there's a lot of developers that really do critical work and that really should be focused just on that. I think it's become really more to forefront with a lot of the security issues, especially around supply chain in open source that we had in the past, even starting, like it started like years back, but uh, that became a thing. I think the big thing that changed it, I think, for the masses was GitHub sponsorship, where it became much more doable to get to that necessary critical mass before you had to kind of go off GitHub, and every time you have to kind of go off GitHub to another platform, it just you lose a lot of the traction to do that. So that has changed. So it's a lot of people of the large project, I think. For example, Creator of Vue has that, and there is quite a, say, high profile people who kind of manage to live off that, but it's very difficult, especially I'm trying to get there, but I still have a long way to go. So before I can kind of just do, you could say, full-time open source. So it's not easy, like with anything. The same thing, like with artists on Patreon and elsewhere as well. It takes quite a big mass, so you need a popular project to get there.
Yeah, I personally don't know anything. I was hoping that Ian was able to give some suggestions of someone that lives only through sponsorships. But I imagine it's really hard to.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably like a mix of working in a regular jobs and having some sort of sponsorship, which is your case, right, Jan? You do have some sponsorship, but you also do some regular work in literary universe and other projects.
Yes. So with me, it's a mix. I have some consultations. I have two startups, but those are mostly draining my finances. So I'm right now in a consultation to get like another job that would kind of create more of a stable income, uh, which I would like to avoid. So if you want to help me work more, on open source and focus more on that, you can sponsor me on GitHub uh, as well. Storyteller CZ is my nickname there. So it's really difficult to get there if you don't have already a lot of people following your work. So in the Meteor ecosystem, it's right now there isn't that enough activity to allow for that, at least at this point. But I would like people to prove me wrong and make it possible to live off that. I would love that because it's a very diverse and uh, fulfilling work. But it's difficult, but there are examples, and I will try to. Yeah, actually, if you go to github.com slash sponsors, there is like a link that will link you to your top, or if you go like under explorers, to your top dependencies, and mostly just people that you can sponsor. Sadly, this only is for your node or npm dependencies, not for your Meteor dependency. So you have to kind of look more deeper into that. And we have on Meteor forums a topic or thread that lists all the people in the Meteor community that have sponsors set up for themselves, so you can help them as well. And I will try to find, because we do have some overlap, for example, with Vue, and I'm really blanking on the name of the creator of Vue, which I do believe he is living off the sponsorships for that. Oh wait, Acreum, I think, is his nickname. No, that's another person in the Vue ecosystem, and I do believe he is living off sponsorships. Or no, Akrim is not, but there
No.
are some other. I will find it. Don't worry.
Please, we have a few comments here. We have one from Gotha Soprano. I don't think that's your name, but anyway, it feels very hard. Maybe if you were sponsored by enterprise, what they mean is probably that like companies like, I don't know, IBM is interested in some open source projects for whatever reason, and they sponsor you to take care of them. I guess, right?
That's one way how you can get it there, but usually there's it's not that easy because enterprises are actually pretty resistant, so that enterprises are more likely to go to tight lift or kind of do B2B
Yeah.
aspects of that. Same with other companies, and oftentimes then the companies would prefer to hire you or do something like that than just sponsoring you, unless it's a very technically oriented company that is, could say, social responsible, and that's willing to do that.
Okay, and Common Folk is saying here that I personally noticed that it's very hard to pay through many European services from Asia with local banking, especially if you have to verify phone number. Hmm, you know that. And what Soprano is asking, it's still sponsorship if you get hired just to do your open source project. Well, that's the case of the Nilsson, I guess, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't no, I wouldn't say that. Okay, that's hard to. Maybe I'm living off sponsorship and I didn't know about it, but I don't know because I have a contract with Meteor. I have my responsibilities here. I think it's a little bit uh, different from sponsorship because I think with sponsorship you have more freedom in a sense that you can have a lot of projects at separate times. You have more like I have a contract of 40 hours per week. I don't know if with this sponsorship you get uh, you get paid by hour like this. So I think it's a little bit different. Like I don't think I live out of a sponsorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% correct there. It's a very different, primarily uh, because with that it's actually a job, and then you have requirements. Okay, we need to release a new version, all that stuff, and you can oftentimes also be recruited to do something in the proprietary part of the project. So it's not that simple because, for example, with my sponsorship, I'm managing right now over 60 open source packages or projects in general. So it's much more wider than that.
Yeah, so it's not the same thing. Like if they contract you, it will be to solve it will be to like working the thing and, and most of the week, and you have to focus basically only on that. So it's different
Yeah.
on that sense. Yeah.
And on a daily work, Danielson, like I know that you guys have dailies, you have a Jira board, you have tasks and issues, you have like I would say a normal routine of a developer team working with a project. Like what is the main difference? Not the difference, but the element that makes it a bit different, maybe from other projects when we're talking about open source. Like, what maybe routines or things that influence your work on being an open source.
Uh, I think it's about the consistency that we do the things, and we have a schedule, right? So as I said, we have our dailies, we have our weeklies, we have our boards, and we have our own roadmap. And inside the company, we have our progress there. We have one-on-one, so we have all this structure, and uh, yeah, I guess that's basically my day by day. Like it's like any other job, developer job, I would imagine. Like you have your goals in the company, and you have to do your deliveries. But uh, more specific about Meteor, like it's there is something else that we are working more closer to a community, so we have to be very careful about the things we say outside the company, because you could pass the wrong message, and you can get people confused. So I guess that is one different thing if you work in a private project and in a open source one. It's more about how you present yourself as company outside the private chat on Slack.
Yeah, you end up having more contact with the users, right? Because sometimes when you're working in a project that is not open source, you never know the person that uses your product, right? It's very common for developers to never think about people are going to use that, or what difficulties they're having. And when you are in open source, in Meteor, for example, you see
Yeah.
people complaining in forums if things are
Yes.
broken, right? That's like
and
really the
and you
thing.
get it's nice that you get feedback almost instantly, and if you do something wrong, really wrong, because people are going to test and they are going to see. And like Meet, and there is something else for Meteor, that Meteor is used to build a lot of apps around the world. So if you do something that breaks a lot of apps, like you can like hurt another business. So we have to consider everything around these questions when dealing when creating code to Meteor and new features and etc. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question here from San the man that is always here with us on the chat. And he's asking about technologies that you guys use for your open source projects. I think maybe we can start with Jan, because he's involved in more projects than us.
Yeah, right now, in Meteor community packages, it differs project to projects. We are slowly kind of moving to some standardization. But if you mean just, like what I use personally for myself, for ID, for example, I use WebStorm. For Git, I use GitKraken, so I can see everything that's happening in the repository, which has been really a great tool in that aspect. And of course, then it's pretty much almost exclusively, around Meteor packages, and all of that stuff. And very rarely do I kind of step outside of that, though I still keep an eye out on what's happening elsewhere as well. So yeah, JavaScript, TypeScript, MongoDB, and all the usual suspects.
Okay. And
Yes. For me, it's basically the same thing. Like it's JavaScript, Mongo, and TypeScript. It's the same word. Like we are with the same stack.
cool. And Fumble Forest is asking, what are you most looking forward to developing next? Oh, yes. Maybe we can talk about some Meteor features, right? That's coming.
Uh, yeah, like one thing that I think it's exciting the whole community. It's our new roadmap. So there we have things about VT, about change streams, and that I think that's the two biggest things to me. Like this will make Meteor even greater. So yeah, working on that will be awesome. That's a good question.
Yeah, I have it in, I would say, two categories. I'm looking for developing new features around the, I would say, user account system when it comes to Meteor itself. And then I'm looking to actually, well, not looking to it, but I'm looking, kind of to work more around testing, because that's a area that I don't fully I'm not that as advanced as I would like to be, so I'm looking forward to learn. But it has been, and I would say still, it's in many ways super painful to work on. So it's tough, but at the same time, I want to uh, get learn how to build a test, do the test, and then see the coverage map of the code getting greener and greener, so that building more stuff in the future, you can make sure that it doesn't break things that we have already built and similar.
Yeah. So, um, uh, Danielson just mentioned our roadmap, Meteor roadmap, and I shared it on the chat here. Okay, guys, for those that want to take a look at what we are going to build next. So we have another comment here. This one is from God Soprano again. I guess working for Enterprise as open source developer shows a lot more merits for a start. I remember Effector framework getting into email feed of thousands of works. Effector. I don't know this one. Do you guys ever heard of it?
No, never.
Effector. That's not a weird name. Anyway, so there's a lot of people that sometimes when I'm talking to them, they say things like, "Oh, I want to get started with open source. I want to start contributing," but they are like kind of lost. They don't know where to start, and obviously, this question has many different answers. But is there like a way of deciding what are you going to contribute to? Like, what do you would advise for people that want to get involved with open source in general?
Um, well, I guess the first step would be to start using the thing that you want to contribute to. Otherwise, you don't know what to do, what's bad, or what you can improve, or if there's something that can be improved. And usually, also like I in Meteor, for example, have some issues there that have a tag called "good for first issue." I think something like this. So this is something that can also look for in an open source project, like easy things that we can do, you can do to contribute and help. But I guess the most important one is start using the thing you want to help build, because in this way you can find things that you can do to help.
Be a part of the community, right?
Yeah, be part of the community, be part of the their channels and talk with people there, and yeah, share your work there and make questions. I guess that is it.
You're going to
Yeah,
say something here?
another thing, is also to look in a lot of repository stuff, uh, good first issues or similar things. So you can, really go in, or you can just go through the documentation and, help improve that. Even, I'm still, we still have, for example, Meteor documentation, some old references, uh, and stuff. But to improve the documentation, as Denson said, you first need to know what you are, using. So yeah, first start using it, and then you can start with with these things. So you can the documentation, see, okay, this is no longer true since version this and this, and just forgot to fix that. So that's very easy kind of ways how to get started. And if you don't know but you really want to get in, feel free to reach out uh, to the maintainers and ask them, where can I help? This is my skill set. This is much more easier on smaller projects where people are, where there's like few people. So if you reach out to me, then I'll be happy to kind of forward you to it. But the big thing there is, don't expect anything to be handed to you, especially recently with the security issues that were happening. Uh, everybody in the open source community, I think, is more suspicious towards people. So you need to build your reputation and kind of your image in the community as well. It's not necessarily a bulletproof ways how to prevent some of the issues that were in the past, but I think really people will be looking much more closely uh, towards that. But right now, thankfully, in Meteor community, since we are not like the top big fish that everybody is using, everybody wants. We don't have as much scrutiny because we are not as much of a target. So it's much more easier to, or like in general, because the community is smaller, you have the things you do are going to have much more outsized impact than if you did them in a much more larger community. So yeah,
Makes
that's
sense.
kind of what I have to say on this.
And speaking about community, open source projects usually rely heavily on community, right? And you've been in this community, Jan, since like the beginning. We could say like it's been a long time you've been here, and
Almost.
yeah, and what do you think that made people um, stay active here? I mean, obviously we had ups and downs along the time, but we're still a very active community if we compare it to a lot of other ones, and there's a lot of activity happening and people using Meteor and discussions and things going on. And what do you think that made this?
So for the first part, ups and downs, I'm actually going to have a talk at Open Source Summit in Japan at the end of October that will kind of cover this topic in more detail, because we had quite a big high at the beginning, and then things went tragically down very fast due to various reasons. So I will be exploring that and how the community as itself survived and what other communities can learn from that. So that's coming up, and I'm hoping Bill can help me through sponsorships cover expenses of that trip. So there is a lot of things, and I think you have always, there's a lot of kind of groups that come, and you have the early adopters that come to technology, then you have more and more people coming through, and then you have some sort of a crisis that Meteor went through. Meteor 1 was very, I would say, specific one, which made it probably much worse than it would normally have. But big part of that also was how the technology landscape was changing, and the peculiarity of the JavaScript community at large is to constantly, especially like with the influencers part, constantly go in, explore new things, change things up, change your build tool over again. And Meteor was kind of the opposite of that. Meteor was like, okay, this is how we do things. We are just doing it in this one way, and we are focusing on building things. So the people who kind of drive a lot of the hype that becomes boring very quickly. But I think that's also why the people we have here today kind of stay here for it. That despite us being here, talking about the build tool, about the framework, all that stuff, most of the community is actually focused on actually building things and delivering value to their clients, which has also dark side that they are not as active in the Meteor community itself. So I think that's kind of the main driver of today's Meteor community. People who like to build stuff, build application, deliver value to customers. And I think that's also what kept me in Meteor community as well, because I've got very much influenced by my first, could say, job, or I had a co-op during my college years because that was a requirement for graduation, and my first one was with Constant Contact, and the focus there was on helping small businesses kind of reach the customers and achieve their goals. And that really, I don't really cannot underline how much that has influenced me. I had an outsized impact on myself. So that kind of stick with me. I think that's also why I like to really be with Meteor, because it allows me to do that. It allows me to focus on building applications and delivering values to my customers. And another aspect of that is the real time thing, real time through subscriptions and other functionality that still wows people to this day. And how easy it is in Meteor I have not been able to find any other technology that makes it as easy as Meteor. So those technical aspects help with that.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
from your perspective, Danielson, since when you started here in Meteor to nowadays, like, would you say that the community back then was more active than what it is now, or nowadays it's more than it was 4 years ago?
I think when I started here, like the community was hurt because NDG just sold the meter to Tiny, so anyone knew what was actually happening, and like it was hell. And I think from on that time the community like lost the trust of Meteor and the people that run Meteor. And we when I start I remember that when at the beginning when I was here, like we had a lot of talk on how we could gain the trust again from the community. So we had to we worked a lot in trying to communicate better and give the community more space to give their opinions. And I think we like came a long way until today. I think today the scenario is way better than 5 years ago, because I think today people like trust more Meteor, trust more the Meteor core. I mean, the people that are running Meteor today, because we try to communicate better and give people space to talk as well. So yeah, and today I think we are for sure more active, and I think it's way better. Like we have a long way to go, but looking back 5 years ago, I think we are in a way better spot today.
Do you agree, Jan? You're mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, communication has been always a big issue. I'd say part of that is because the company or your software or MDG back then has been run by developers. So that's you know in general, if I generalize, introverts who like just to focus on programming. So communication is not our biggest, let's say, forte and specialty. So a lot of mistakes were made, and especially also in the early days, there have been, you can still look at that in the forums, a lot of interesting, not now interesting, but back then, like a very wild discussion about what should be the future of Meteor, where it should be heading. And a lot of the issue was that the team also made a lot of, the discussion and decisions internally, and then kind of just shared the result, and the which was sometimes disagreed very strongly with very vocal members of the community. So then that kind of led to some now interesting situations. So communication has always been a bit of an issue. It's also why kind of a lot of the traditional communication styles that are going to work, say, in like other communities, are not going to fly well in Meteor. I say, don't try to communicate with Meteor community through what I would call the corporate jargon and flowery words. Just give it to us straight. That's much more preferred, because once we kind of smell, oh, now you're communicating with us through this floor language, we saw, okay, you are coming and telling us some BS, or there's something very bad going to happen soon. So there's kind of also usually with that there comes allergic reaction from the community to that.
Yeah, developers in general are like allergic to marketing slash corporate BS, right? When we identify them easily, and we don't want to have to deal with them. We don't want to have to anything to do with that, right? And yeah, but it's good to see your guys' perspective on this, because one of the things that we have been really trying hard to do in the past month is to improve the communication with the community, which is something that a lot of people complain. A lot of people said that they didn't know what was going on, and so on. And this is something we've been trying to do. I mean, I just got here, but we are really working on that. And about dedicating yourself and your time to open source, I think this one is more for Jan than to the news. But working with open source, most time is like, I'm going to say like this in quotes, like working for free. And as you mentioned, it's hard to make a living out of it, to live out of sponsorships. And so it's not like an easy way of living if you're thinking about money, right? And why do you still do it? Like, why are you every day involved in discussions, in issues, and trying to do things, instead of just dedicating your time to, I don't know, maybe other a full-time job that pays you better? Like, what are your motivations behind that?
That's kind of funny because today I planned, the classical example is okay. I plan to just like tackle one thing and end up 8 hours later I'm doing a lot of other things. Um, Part of it I would say is my personality, which can have in this aspect a negative part of it, that I like to help people, help them kind of become. I want people to be part of it and like the community I'm part of. So when somebody comes with a problem, I kind of like to be there and help. And so I need to work on myself to kind of step back and not do that, or at least always put link to my sponsorship there and other things. So I need to become I could say better businessman in this aspect. Uh, so that's one part of it. Another aspect plays with it is, and that was oftentimes also my excuses, because I use all the packages or most of the packages I kind of maintain for my other projects as well. So it's not I can kind of justify my, oh, I'm just also doing it for my business. But especially lately on with how money are tight, it's quite difficult to justify. So I have to become personally much more better at managing my time, because I want to get it out there, and it looks good, and also it's oftentimes fun. That's so the things that are fun to develop and work on are get in open source done much faster than the more annoying things like tests. Though today was a exception, because I was actually working on fixing tests so we can release Meteor.js version 4. So I went through that and fix all the tests, and one potential bug as well in that. Or yeah, one bug, which was why one of the tests was failing. So that's that, and that also kind of then comes oftentimes, as I said, with my personality, how I want to help people. If somebody comes and has issues, I would like to solve it, especially if it coincides with some of my other things. So for example, if it's my sponsor, then I have even more motivation to fix that issue. And I just kind of can roll up very quickly if I'm not careful.
Makes sense. And I was going to ask, I forgot, where's my question? Oh, sorry, I got confused with two monitors here. And you like, I think that this is this is a bit of a question that I'm not sure if it's what's going on. Am I here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to you guys. Let me see just to. Uh, okay,
While we
so
wait,
yeah.
just found the founder of UNV, Evan Yu. So that he's one example of a person who can make a living of open source. And you can just kind of look at the list of sponsors here. So we're 200. So even like on the smaller donation, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have give more. Uh, that will add up. So yeah, it's really a lot on popularity of the projects you are building as
Mm,
well. Because if it's popular, people want to make sure that it keeps on going, especially now given the recent events.
yeah, and Evan was part of Meteor back then, right?
Yeah, he was a intern, and that's kind of also kind of goes into the story of Meteor. A lot of, I would say, missed opportunities, especially
Mm,
with Vue and all that stuff.
yeah,
There's actually a documentary on the on views so that you can watch on YouTube that kind of mentions and explains all of that.
yeah. But we plan on not missing more opportunities here in the future now. And yeah, so guys, I'd like to thank you very much for the chat. It was really cool to talk to you today. We have to do this more time. We should more times. We should bring this topics related to open source and community and just chat. I really enjoyed chatting instead of having this agenda, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
everyone
you.
that
Thank you for
was here.
inviting me here.
Yeah, thank everyone that
It's
was here
nice.
with us today. As usual, I don't. Is there anything you guys want to say before we finish?
Danielson, go
Uh,
first.
yeah, contribute to Meteor and use Meteor, and Meteor is awesome. You won't regret it. You'll not regret it.
So for me, as I was speaking before, being better of kind of advertising myself and all that stuff, I would like to mention that I have a sponsorship on GitHub. So github.com/sponsors /storytellers CZ. Uh, there you can sponsor me. Would really appreciate it, especially now, as I said, I have been selected to give a talk on Open Source Summit Japan, which eats a lot of money. So I'm looking for people, to kind of help me offset some of the costs of the journey so that I can kind of be more relaxed and focus more on giving better talk, which hopefully will draw more attention to Meteor itself as a result. Uh, so that's on sponsor, or if you want to, you can also hire me for consultation, call.com/storyteller. So
Yeah, let me share this
that's
link
that.
here. Kaggle.com/slash storyteller. There you are. Let me share this in the chat. So yeah, I just shared Jan's GitHub account, and here is his cow as well. Oops, I should. I think I just shared
The wrong one.
the wrong one. Yes, deleted it.
Yeah.
And now HTTP. Okay, just a second. Now it's the right one. And yes, now it's the right one.
Is it?
And is it not? Uh,
No, is
what
this
am I
the true one as
doing?
well?
Ah, man, come on. Now it's gonna work. HTTP and without this thing here.
Yes, you are. What you're there's a difference between there is a nice landing page with all the available
Yeah,
consultations, and what you're referring to is a very specific one.
yeah.
Because
Now it's the
I
right
have
one.
some extra for my startups and other people that have special pricing, like my sponsors.
Okay, now it's the right one. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time, and see you soon.
See ya. Bye,
Bye.
guys.